In a pretty red day, unfortunately, as we wrap up not only the week, but we're wrapping up the month of April back in negative territory in a big way, almost a 3% plus kind of day for the NASDAQ at this point, as tech continues to lead us to the downside. Unfortunately, it's been a bit of a sell-off right from the word go today, even as we had a few signs in the pre-market this morning of some possible strength coming through. It turns out to be the opposite here. As you can see, there it is. 2.95 for the NASDAQ, 2.3 for the S&P, 1.5 for the Dow. Ugly right across the board. Crude oil back in positive territory. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum very red on the day as well. Yeah, I'll show you a very red board right across the entire thing. MHK standing out here in the consumer discretionary sector as positive. Some of the casinos, as I was saying this morning, LVS and Wynn both positive on the day as well. But yeah, look at Amazon, 13.7%. Been a long time since you've been able to see Amazon down 13% on the day, coming off a disappointing report for them. The entire tech sector here in negative territory as well. Western Digital, STX, among the few positive on the day, but ugly. Intel to the downside, along with the rest of the chip makers. NVIDIA, I just saw there, 3.7%. Wow. Real estate stocks, I mean, there's not much to mention here on the positive side. Real estate stocks, relatively weak, it's worth mentioning. There's really no significant news with these today, but really standing out to the downside today as well. Wow. Ugly day. Let's quickly give you a look at the NASDAQ here. More red numbers to see. The reason I wanted to do this is because of these. Chinese stocks, very positive. PDD, JD, Baidu, there's a bunch of them that were all higher, as we were saying in the pre-market. If you joined us this morning on some positive movement from Chinese regulators on kind of loosening their grip on the tech sector in that country. So some positivity in an otherwise pretty ugly day. Hope your afternoon is going well. Welcome. We're going to jump into a bit of a review, talk about what we were looking at this morning going into the open. Tons of opportunities this morning, whether it was Apple, whether it was Amazon, or a whole bunch of other things that popped up. We'll get things kicked off here with Neil looking at one of his trades from this morning.
And shocker, it's going to be Tesla here today we're going to talk about. And obviously, it's had the volatility, it's had the price movement. The real story just being how crazy it had been to that downside off that $1,000 level. So I think we get this out of the way by looking at the 15-minute. I got it blown up here just so we can see kind of the perspective of how large the gap fill was that got taken out at that 960 level. And we did have a settle down here around the mid to low 800s, but there was this rejection off of the bottom. I think this is the context of what we're coming into, for the long idea was just that you had this rejection, wick below that 860 to 850 bottom. You're gapping back to the upside here, and then you look at these previous resistance levels in this area, 900 to 910. That's what I had highlighted. You essentially just had this nice little hard top that you were essentially going to be testing and breaking through this morning. And one thing you know about Tesla is as quickly as it comes down, it can go to the upside. So when you had a couple of days of selling, the big news, of course, being that this was caused, or at least started by Elon selling 4 million shares for that Twitter deal. And obviously, once that is done, he says there's no more selling. You are looking for that relief back into the upside. That's exactly what we're looking for here today. It could have been a little bit better, but not by much, because I'm always going to take that shot. If 910 had held, then I'm always thinking about the fact if we don't get through that 910, the rollover could be gigantic. So as much as there was a nice scalp off of 900 this morning, ultimately I did test out that short in front of 910. But after that, once that was rejected, it was all for the long side. And whether it was taking a reversal break at 910, buying the dip in front of 900, both valid entries based on our higher time frame look. The only disappointment to be had was, and I marked off 925, but really 940, 950, 960. This is where I thought this trade could go. And I kept saying it over and over again. I want to make sure I have some on board. Sure, I'm going to take some off in front of 920. Definitely going to do that. When we dip at 900, am I going to take some back off at that 910 in case it turns into resistance again? Sure. But at this point, I'm thinking moon. The market didn't care. Ultimately, that's what mattered here. And Tesla made that move. We topped out at 935. It did look like we had a chance, but it was pretty clear with the volume of selling. When we got back at 925, it was just not in. Based on what the market was doing, we put the trail in off of that 925 level and got trailed out. And a lot of times you're going to be really happy with a $20 winner. And overall, it was a good day on Tesla. And given how I missed out on the trades where you wanted to buy it and hold it when it was to the downside. We're mostly scalping to the downside. They were good wins, but I think the potential of this long was much bigger. So I'm glad I was in it. I was glad I reloaded. It just goes to show how relatively weak it is. You can sort of see we're trading down at 890 a lot of times, and this is a different kind of market that we're in. Last year, or even a few months ago, if I saw the same type of move, I'm telling you, we'd be sitting at 950 and 960, and it's a testament to just how things have changed in this overall market. And it tells you that when we get to that downside, we're following through. When we're getting the up days and we're strong, we're not following through. Like, we're getting solid up days, we're getting decent up days, we're getting okay up days. But when we're going to the downside on Tesla, we're falling like a rock. So really, the biggest lesson here would be when we identify that it turns out to be relatively weak. At this point, I was thinking, do I still like the long at 910? Do I still like the long at 900? And I opted not to trade it. What I should have maybe been asking myself was, hey, we didn't get to 950. The market turned weak and you held on to your shorts at this point. Maybe we should have been thinking about, are we shorting 920? When we reclaimed that 910 to the downside, should Tesla have been a short later on in the session? So I always talk about, it's not about evaluating your wins or celebrating them. It's how you can get better. And today, truth of the matter is, maybe it should have been a short back through that 910. The shorts seem to have the better follow through in the market. So as good along as it ended up being today, I know some people caught this and enjoyed it. It looked like it was a great idea to maybe reverse Tesla because the market wants to sell this Friday.
Yeah, it seems like what goes up also goes down on a day like today. We're very red, as we said, going into the last couple of hours. Two-way action on a lot of names, including Tesla, that was on the watch list this morning on that $4 billion sale from our friend Elon. That's the link, guys, if you're looking for it, for the watch list. We send it out before we come on every morning at 8:30. Has everything you need to know in the pre-market, and then you join us at 8:30. We get you ready for the open at 9:30. Still watching this OPTN, or what is it? OPNT. My apologies. The Hikma deal, yeah, it was fake news. Never happened. So if you missed that with Trader Pred, we're right back down. So as you were, volume's basically gone. So, I mean, yeah, as you were for this OPNT. Let's jump into a few things we were discussing this morning. One of those was Apple, obviously. A bit of a question mark going forward as far as supply chain is concerned, as far as China is concerned for Apple. So, I mean, it tried this morning, guys.
It gave it a try, but you know what? Couldn't get far enough. And this market decided to do a U-turn on Apple. And 159 is still the marker that we've been looking forward to. 159, we marked, both Neil and I believe, marked off that 159 in the pre-market. We're looking for that breakdown short. Market decided, or Apple decided they wanted to go up. And then here it goes to the downside here, breaking through that 159. Once we can get that going, shorts are on the table. I also noticed AMD is also starting to work the bottoms as well underneath that 87 area. So that's an option on the table for shorts as well. So a lot of stocks not looking the greatest right now as we head to the downside now. Remember, relative strength and whatnot we were talking about. The only one name in the market, in the NASDAQ top 10 that's actually, in terms of weighting, that actually is positive. Tesla up 1.45%. Everything else, we got Amazon down 14. We've got Apple, Microsoft 2.5 and change. We got Nvidia at 4%. It's all over the place. And Apple, once it gets going south of any support levels, and I'm looking at 159. Once it gets below that, we could really open up to the downside.
Give it time, I guess is the only thing I can think about there. Yeah, speaking of that Apple, I'm actually in the Apple trade. I got in maybe a little bit early here, but it did look pretty good. Like, it bounced off of 159.60. I know we marked off 159. At the time, it looked really solid. That 159 on the 3-minute here, because I don't want to slide over to the 15, but on the 3, you can sort of see we held this level yesterday and rallied into the earnings. You do dip down here. The market was trying to hold up. Both the ES and the NASDAQ had a nice little double bottom. We bounced off 59.5, so I did enter at 60, took out half for the scalp trade, and sort of sitting in the rest here, because until we actually test 159, there's no point in doing anything. It actually has to bounce off. I'm not going to sit in front of it. It has to bounce off 159 first. If we can bounce off that level, fine. Then I'll try to add to this long position. Otherwise, I'm still in some of the intel, and obviously Alibaba is rolling over oh man, I don't even have a good pun for this. Rolling over like whatever. You guys can think of something yourself. It's dying a very rapid death here. So I want to hang on to those shorts. I have a DWAC long, but I don't think we care too much about what the market is doing when we take a DWAC long. Have a little piece of that off of the 51 level as well. But yeah, Apple, we go through 159 and it's kaputs. We're going to end testing the lows if Apple doesn't hold that level. End of story.
Yep.
Vaccinity trying to go again here, guys. We mentioned this on the morning show if you joined us. This thing halted a couple of times on the way up the first time. We're trying to get back to $8 here, which is a level from the daily chart. But the chairman and CEO was buying up shares apparently, so that kicked off this 100% move for Vaccinity. Another one to keep an eye on here this afternoon. Let's go to TDOC. We mentioned it this morning if you joined us in the pre-market. Kathy Wood likes TDOC, apparently, enough to buy 600,000 plus more shares yesterday after that amazing move down following their earnings report. She was on CNBC trying to lift it back up. I mean, volume came in, but even TDOC getting sold off here.
Well, she likes TDOC. Great. Can you get it enough? Can you buy some more so you can get it above 39? At which point I would start liking the ability. I like the long aspect on the technical side. If you can get it above 39, up until that happens. I mean, I understand she's making a value play here, but still, at the same time, technically we're traders here. Technically, we're saying get it above 39. That's the last set of resistance levels, resistance levels. Before we get to 40, if we can get 39 into 40, that's your opening door for the upside towards 50. But for now, inside of this area, I believe the support area we saw was between 30 and 29 yesterday. And
yeah, but that was her buying. So is it even
what happens if it gets back down there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we know for a fact that that's essentially where she was loading up, then if it gets back down to that price, does it have the same validity? It's nice on the chart. I think there'll probably be some buyers down to 29 and 30. But once you know that a whale has bought down there and typically does so on the dead cat bounce notion is loaded up, I can't anticipate that there's going to be another round of buying if we get to that price. But so I wouldn't treat it as well as we treated it yesterday. All that said, I did think there was a chance for a long off that. Remember the 34 from yesterday? We were long into 34 off of 31. I think both of us were in the trade. Of course, both of us were in the trade. I thought there was a chance to play the same level, so I said I'd probably short it first in the afternoon. I'm going to. I shorted into it and then reversed into the long. Actually added to it on the way up rather than getting it out on the way to 35. I was adding to the position, but it couldn't crack this 35, 75 to 80. There was a lot of selling down there, so I ended up taking it out. I did try to reload in front of 34, and that didn't last very long. And at this point, if we get back below 33.50, there's a lot of room to the downside to not even just retest in 32, the lows today, but that 29 to 30 level that you were just talking about, Arun. So yeah, Teladoc still up on the session, but it's hanging on by a thread. If the market gives it up, it's probably going to take it with it. Like Tesla, I was just talking about how Tesla turned into just a clear rest of the day trend short side, and I don't have a trade on it since we were going long. And you've had basically the same thing, like short opportunities off the highs in Teladoc, and then testing the lower high and rolling over at that same 35 level. Now 3 times, and I don't have a short in Teladoc to be found. But yeah, this market's looking pretty weak. Even the names that were strong are giving it up. Upstart. That was screaming today, and that's fallen almost all the way back last I checked.
Even some of the Chinese stocks, I just saw Baba as well, guys, trying to break back to the downside after that monster gap up in the pre-market on that note we were talking about there, if you joined us this morning. Let's go to Tesla. We heard Neil's take there this morning. So it turns out it was actually doubled. Wednesday, there was a filing. or Wednesday he did some selling, and then Thursday he did some selling. Another filing comes out this morning, so it's yeah, $8.5 billion, not $4 billion, for Mr. Elon on the sell side. I mean, it doesn't matter anyways. That's Vax, not Tesla, but it doesn't matter anyways how much it is because the move is done already. But we tried to bounce. It was a pretty impressive move this morning right out of the gate, but right back down as we said.
Yeah, no, well, it does matter. I actually just put it in the chat. I go, look, man, every single time that we make a mistake or I make a mistake and say like the wrong thing, please, they call it out because it does matter. You know what I'm saying? Like it matters to get the facts right. And sometimes we're talking all day long, and so sometimes it goes like verbal diarrhea mode, and we'll say the wrong date for an earnings thing. We'll say one stock when I mean the other. But the last thing I would ever want is for people that are watching to just assume that we never make a mistake or have a slip of the tongue. So yeah, don't hesitate, man. Like I'm happy when you guys call it out that we get something like that wrong. It's easy to make a mistake when you're talking all day long and not realize that you've done it. So. Elon, even if he is done, by the way, when you're pledging shares as collateral, understand the pressure that puts on the stock in the future, and it's a cascading type of effect if the value of Tesla were to fall too far, and that's both the risk for Tesla shareholders, but also for Twitter shareholders, because imagine a scenario where you have too much of a price action to the downside, and all of a sudden he has to pledge more. By the way, because of how volatile stock, because of how much volatility the stock is, he has to pledge more shares than maybe he normally would have, and he's so highly leveraged right now. With regards to that, it increases the possibility of a walking away from the deal under certain conditions. So you've got to keep that in the back of your mind, even if you strongly believe the deal will happen. Like been in that camp since the beginning. I just want to make it clear that there are more reasons to believe the deal couldn't happen. Tesla for now is holding this nice 880 level, 880 to 885 has been a good, solid support level. And I think it sort of stems from when we traded in these ranges back in early March, like this was a hard resistance level. And when we broke away from the 880 to 85, you can see this is when you got the acceleration, to that, post, to that 1150, I guess the lower high up here, the recent high of the year anyways. And now that you're back below the 200 period moving average, it's almost like that 880 to 85 has to turn back into resistance for things to get super ugly. It feels like today, maybe it's not going to hold up if this market takes 13,000. I just don't see that level holding on Tesla, and we probably are, headed towards testing going red here. Whether the event's done or not, and he's done selling, you have to look at this and say, ooh, a failure to hold the 200 period moving average on the daily chart is pretty bearish, all things considered. And you look at that chart and says, no, that's you retesting 800 and 750. So watch out for Tesla, man. We've seen what happens when it goes down. It's just more acceleration than when it goes up. But we're not going to talk about it because it's not on the rundown. But DWAC is continuing its rally. It bounced off 51 there. I see a consolidation like this, and I'll go to the 15 minutes to explain why I actually like DWAC alongside. Look at it on the daily chart. This is $51 on the daily. You've been climbing towards this price 4 days, and I keep saying it. Yeah, I'll short DWAC when I see a good shorting opportunity, but we then hold 51. It tries to gap up, failed break through 51, reestablish the level, sits there all lunchtime. I'm going to jump into that long when I see it. I think we retest the high of the day, at least 54s. I'll cover in front of 54s. 55 has been a bit of a problem, but when you see levels like this on a multi-day time frame, and then not only does it get broken, you can't take the break because it gaps above. But what you can do is you can see what happens when it tries to fail back through that level. It breaks 51, reestablishes, and then holds consolidation. Let it consolidate, and then get into the long position for the run to the upside. And of course, the news story being President Trump. I think he had a couple of messages, maybe two. I think Brendan was saying a second. I don't know what the second message was. It was like Kofefi, and then he might have said something else like "I'm back" or something along those lines. And that's the catalyst today. But it doesn't take much for DWAC to go. So when the momentum is there, you just join the party.
I mean, hey, he loves to make news. He's making news today. But hey, at the end of the day, Tesla is going to be the story that we're going to talk about. And like I mentioned from the beginning, Tesla, although that 900 break to the upside would have been, it's there, it looks good. You got to worry about this zone. And I marked it off for you guys this morning, that a zone from about 915 going all the way north of 970. There's a ton of selling there that's been waiting. goes back to about February or so. So there's a lot of action there. You've got to respect it. And Tesla has decided, you know what? We're going to respect it because you got that pop off. Looks like a breakout trade. Not so much. Immediately goes to 930, 935. Immediately does a U-turn inside that zone. And back to the downside we go. And this, I don't want to say it's not surprising, but the fact that it's making an aggressive move like that shouldn't be much of a surprise. Volume, the market, especially a stock like this, with this kind of price point and this kind of volatility, will respect volume. Obviously, most stocks will, but this one more so with a more aggressive tone. So that's what you're seeing here. Volume steps in, sell side action, back to the downside. Now you've got 880 on the low end, and we could actually open up the downside. So here we are on Tesla. Although it's up 1.16%, the lone bright spot in the NASDAQ right now. And if it were to kind of just get going south of 880, we could easily turn negative on Tesla. So, you know, if for anyone who's long, if you want to cross your fingers, this is where we got to hold for us to stay positive on Tesla. But if we were to take that 880, it could open a can of worms for not just Tesla, but also for the market as a whole, because AMD's on its lows, Apple not looking too fresh, Microsoft on its way down. So just be careful. Futures attempted a rally to the upside, got nowhere, or attempted a move to the upside, let's just say, got nowhere, and back down we go.
A lot of people have, we were talking about Starlink, Ms. V and I. Yeah, we're just looking into whether or not they're going to do a launch or not. It was both, Neil, to answer your question. It was just one post, but it was both. There you go. Nice picture in front of his Mar-a-Lago. Is that Mar-a-Lago, I guess? Probably. I don't know.
Probably.
Anyway,
It's hot, man.
Let's continue along. Hood with a huge bounce today off of a mess of a report for Robinhood, but they buy it up anyways here, guys. A lot of strength here in Hood.
Hood.
Oh my goodness! Where is it? It's really hot in here. That's why I had to take the sweater off. It's this studio. I'm telling you, man. Like, you guys aren't here. Like, it's either too hot or too cold. Like, I'm either needing to wear a hoodie or a sweater, or I just want to be in short sleeves. You never seem to get it right. And I definitely didn't get it right on Robinhood today. Although I did say this, like yesterday with Teladoc, I was like, it's a terrible quarter. I'm going to short it when there's a short setup, spring the trap, and it's probably a trap, but we'll reverse to the long if it made sense. And then this morning, I told myself the same thing. Like, if Robinhood got above that 940 hard stop, I should be reversing to the long side of the trade. I didn't do it. And instead of reversing into the long, I just lost once. And then when it got to 10, I lost twice, and I didn't do anything after that. So it's starting to come back in. This is pretty much exactly like every single strong chart that I've seen today. Made the high, and now you're threatening to just break down. Break down back below we're back below 10 right now, but break down below like 985. And there's nothing to point to this and say it's a good quarter for them. The reality is, when you're both losing users, and the users that you have smaller account sizes, I'm not sure what the catalyst is, or what's outside of short squeezes. I'm not sure what the catalyst is for this to actually end up working out in the short term, outside of, at some point, the brand or just their customers could be worth picking up for somebody. And maybe that has to fall even further, but you already tested all-time lows today. They have held, but they're going to be in play. That $9 is going to be in play for a while until you can hold a bid above 10 on that daily chart. So, every single time we get down there, I'm going to be thinking about, okay, is this going to be the time that it's a short breakdown through 9 and everything, all hell breaks loose? Just keep in mind, the stock will squeeze on you. So it's always going to be one on those days where it feels like the bottom is falling out. You want to keep it in the back of your mind. Hey, but those are the kind of situations where it can squeeze off the bottom. I know I didn't catch it today, but it's a mistake not to have reversed that trade down around 920 to 40. And the weird thing about it is, I told myself it was going to be an area stop, 20 to 40, and then I just went with the hard stop at 40 and didn't consider how strong it was in that 20-cent range, because I might have saved myself 10 or 15 points on that if I'd actually been more attentive to that short. At the time, BABA and Tesla were way too interesting, and that'll happen to you when you're trading multiple stocks. If I was trading only Hood, I'm willing to bet you that I would have been out faster and probably going into that long.
Yeah, Hood was one of those trades where I was like, you got to pay for shorts for one, so I'm not going to pay for shorts. And I wasn't going to go long. Why? You look at the daily, you're going, well, ain't that a downtrend, especially after we crossed through that 10 even. it opens up the door. Even a move up to the move up into that 10 into 11 opens up the fade. But again, paying for shorts, right? So we kind of walked away from it. And what does a hood do? Although this was, I wasn't expecting this. I was more like, hey, if we take the lows out south of 9 even, we actually work those 890s, we could actually open up to the downside. Hood decides to take off all the way back to 10 and into 1080, it looks like. And now we're starting to lose it a little bit. But can't deny the fact, the trend is there. And we're just hitting resistance points along the way here to the upside. So at some point in the next few days, I imagine some more selling is going to take place around here and we go back down again. But if we were, that weren't to happen and we were above 13 here, you could even argue 14, 13, somewhere between 13 and 14, this trend could change. We could double bottom, or we could not even do a false break through the 10, snap back to 13, and we could actually reverse this trend to the upside. But for now, respect the trend. It is on the downside, and Hood is just doing a relief rally, to say the least, after being down so many days in a row. We've been essentially in this trend since March the 30th. Beginning of April, we've been kind of working our way down, and here we are trying to go up today, but not holding any ground at these 10 levels.
Yeah, all-time lows this morning right out of the gate. Amazing for Robinhood. New lows, speaking of, day lows anyways for the market here. I just noticed that some of the chip makers making new day lows, but the one that reported not good earnings wasn't. So Intel here, yes, it's down 6.3% on the day, but trying to hold the initial move to the downside here when you flip over to AMD. Not so much, guys. We're only 3.3 for AMD, but a bit of a trend there.
Yeah, I tried the long bounce in AMD and it didn't work out. I'm still in the Intel short, and I think this morning, like Mike, what I was trying to get across, because I know people like, you like the Intel short, you don't like the support on the daily chart. It just comes down to, it was a bad quarter, it was a bad guide, and you basically have the CEO telling you the time horizon that you got to think about this stock for, and we're not talking about days and weeks and months. Or quarters, we're talking years, right? Like this is a dollar cost average in the next year to play it out for 2 to 5 year type of play if it works out for them, which I like and I am doing personally. But today it was simply about taking the end of the week, overall weakness in the stock, and a short setup. And that was both sitting in it in front of 45 and the failed breakout at 45 to 45.5 and rolling it into the bottom. Now, why I think you're not testing these lows has to do with that support level on the daily chart. And I got to zoom really far back out here because you're like, ooh, 43 looks like support. Then you go all the way back. Yeah, and it's still support in 2020, and it's still support in 2019. And that's as far as I can go back on this chart. And it's still support in 2018. It is a very, very significant level on Intel. So I suspect we are not, no matter what happens in the market today, you're probably not breaking this 43 level today. It doesn't mean it can't happen. It probably won't happen today. That's my ultimate target. I did work back into some shares when it tested 44.5. Those are the shares you'll still see me in now. But if we bounce off this enough times in the afternoon, we're not breaking even the 43.5, let alone getting into 43, where I ultimately want to take this short out. But Intel, we'll see what happens if it can hold today. The longer it holds this level, the better chance you get a bounce. I still think it can be one of those. I still think it can be a solid company. Well, I definitely believe it can be, but you cannot deny the momentum, and you can't guide poorly here. That's just the reality. You're going to get punished if you have a poor guide. You saw that happen with. Well, I mean, you've seen that happen with just about everybody. Yeah. Like, what am I picking here? Like, who actually guided well in this term? Like, people have reaffirmed guidance. Like Ford and GM will reaffirm their guidance and get destroyed for it, right? Yeah. Let alone guiding poorly. You're gonna get crushed.
Yeah, well, don't tell me 43 is gonna hold its support, Neil, because I've got 44 shorts. Ugh. So here we are, kind of working
so why?
Oh, but you got it recently, though, right?
No, I reloaded at like 11 o'clock, right at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah, okay, around the same time. Yeah. So we both ended up taking the 44 short here. It went all the way up to 44.50, and now it's making its move down. You can see the red arrow right there. So we are working our way back towards these lows. If Intel can get going, that could be nice. Intel used to have a much larger weight in the NASDAQ, and then obviously things change. Other names come in play, and now it doesn't. I don't even know where it is. It's not in the top 10. I'm not even sure if it's in the top 20. It might be, it might not. I have no clue. But it does look like Intel, it does want to take a look at the bottom end. Market wants to take a look at the bottom end. So here we are kind of just waiting this one out. Yeah, you know, market's deciding whether it wants to rally off these lows or actually just break through. And I'll tell you this much: if it breaks through, I'm gonna say HE double hockey sticks is gonna be breaking loose. And
you can say that word, you know.
No.
that.
The only reason I said it is because when I was about to say it, I just kept remember one of my teachers would never say that, and he would always say it like that. I was just like, oh, just memory. Anyways, random memory, guys. But yeah, all hell's gonna break loose if we end up going through. If we go another 10 points, we lose any support that we've built up for the last 2 or 3 days, and it's gonna open up to the downside fairly quickly. So we'll see if this market can get going, because hey, I am short. You can see the board. I've got 3 shorts, 1 long. The TKAT long is fairly close to getting stopped out. The stop was supposed to be south of 250, but never broke, right? It just bounced off that 252, and now it's at 260. I'm like, cool. I'm like, I guess I still have hope that this could turn. I mean, I really don't care, because money across the board on AVGO. We talked about this AVGO trade. Right, about that 568 short. Yeah, we've got that 568 short. We got 567.95, took some out at 562, and now it's knocking on the door of 560 to the downside, and that's sitting on a $7.39 winner. We've got INTC, like we said, is now back in the money, 9 cents. BILI, one of the Chinese names that I finally got into after losing on BABA this morning. BILI on the short side, flat, and then that's a TKAT. And do we have anything for Brendan? No? Yeah, we can go to Brendan. I'll come back to, we'll talk about something else after.
Always. This new text from earlier in the week, NUTX, big move, guys, on volume, back to $10 here. It's coming back in a little bit, but 22%. So another big day for NUTX, trying to wrap up the month as well.
What is NUTX? It's NUTX. Nut. I know. That's the thing about it. Like, Brendan he's like the most professional guy ever, which I love. Which it might actually be NUTX. I just can't bring myself to say it when I have an opportunity to say NUTX every single time and have a little bit of fun with it. So in the midst of this market coming back in, because the 13,000 is right here, the 4180 is broken, as you've already mentioned, Arun. So it's getting pretty weak. However, you know, Apple, as we speak, Apple's still barcoding and not even at that 159. So this might be the last ditch effort. Like, I had the DWAC long. I don't think that's going to care what the market is doing. It's got its own issues, which I might as well just quickly show you here. Like, DWAC, what it's dealing with is this 53 level. If it gets through that, I want to be out in front of 54, but it's having some trouble getting through that 53. As far as Apple goes, if the market makes any kind of a turn, the good news is if you reclaim 13,000 or 14 or hold 13,000, reclaim 41.8 on the ES, then Apple has already made a nice base and should get to 162. That's why this is a name I want to be into the long side. And outside of that is hold on to your shorts, because Alibaba, which the thing about doing Tesla for trade of the day is just sometimes it's about the learning experience and what you can kind of show for reading it or what was a mistake. And then the ones where it's as simple as this is your daily chart on Alibaba, it puts in this monster gap, and I'll zoom back in here because you don't need all that. It puts in this monster gap above the 50-period moving average, gets sold off the second retail, most of the majority of retail opens back up, and then puts in this high 102, 103, puts a failed break in through the high of the day, puts in a lower high failed break through the lower high, and it's just been a short all day long trying to fill in the gap. There's not a heck of a lot to analyze with that trade. It's just, okay, it fails to break through the high, you get into the short, you hold on to it pretty much all day long, and we're still in it. And the thing is, once it got through 99, I mean, I don't know where the bottom can be. We accelerate to the downside, and we capitulate. I could see 95 or 96. The probability of that lowers the closer we get towards the end of the day, but you know, it all signs of weakness relative to the other Chinese names. And if it was the only one that I was going to short. I tried a long in Pinduo Duo that didn't work. This was the one that I only wanted to be short in, and let the long try to work on some of the other Chinese names. BABA was relatively weak all pre-market.
Yeah. I mean, shorts are working out well. The one trade that I haven't talked about yet because it's not on the board, I telegraph, anytime I'm on the show, I don't talk about my trades obviously when I'm on my own, but when I'm on the show, I'll telegraph my trades before I take them. And I mentioned to you guys, futures, hey, bounce. Can we get a bounce so I can short this? Yeah, we got a bounce, and I shorted it. I straight up said I was going to short this in the mid-20s. 42, right in front of 42.25. You like that short, right? Right there on that move back to the upside. Got that short. Exits here in front of 85. So there you go, 40 points on the run down. I've still got the rest of this. So we are riding the train on north of 50 points on the rest of this. We've locked in 40 points on some. Rest of it still going down. I'm just trailing at this point. Once you're in the money like this and the market's not telling you, hey, get out, we're riding this all the way down. That's why I'm like 41.60, let's go. If we can get through 41.60, we can open up the downside, and then this can actually turn into a much larger trade because now I can, position up other I guess, pieces along the way as well. But for the time being, 42, right in front of this 42.25, we're short. Cashed out 40 points. We're going to let the rest go. We might get a pop. It is 2:30, 90 minutes left. We've been trending down. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a rally of some sort, maybe a push up, maybe 20 points, 25 points to the upside from 41.75 back into these 4200s. That wouldn't surprise me. But again, that's actually kind of needed. In this kind of market, a relief rally before we get to the end of the day would actually help the situation for the short side because it gets some shorts out of the way. And I mean, if we don't even get that and we just accelerate without, getting that, watch out below on Monday, I guess. But for the time being, our big guy, our bear, he was half and half.
You win.
He was half and half this morning. He wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. Now we turned him, as soon as we broke 42.25 to the downside, we turned him bear and we went all out shorts across the board. And now we're just sitting pretty, waiting for this market to actually do something with these 70s. And this is the issue right now. And this is why I believe the market's slowing down is because of all the action you're getting in the last few days. Look at this, going all the way back to the 27th. There's a ton of volume. And as I mentioned earlier, or in the morning show, odds of us snapping right through this is going to be very low. We're going to have to grind through this because there's a lot of volume here, right? But if we can just bounce down, move up, bounce down, move up, and if I were to break that down to a 5-minute chart, that's exactly what we're doing. We're bouncing down, moving up, bouncing down, moving up, bouncing down. This is exactly how you grind through support levels. And here we are finally taking a look at 41.70. Okay, next up, 41.60 would have to get going to the downside, and then we can really get going and accelerate because there's nothing stopping this market from actually taking out that low of April the 26th. 41.3675 is that low. If we can keep going, it's a trouble.
If you're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it.
Which is that? Oh, yeah.
I got to get the headshot. Like, first of all, and this is the thing about Arun, and sometimes I'm guilty of, not hitting the key or celebrating when you got a good trade. But let's be real, man. Like, that's the thing about that. The thing about that futures trade is, the conviction of like, okay, I'm looking for that shorting opportunity every single day and structuring trades. Sometimes you hold on to it. This one, getting it dead to rights and letting it ride because there's a heck of a lot below. And who knows where we're going to go. Like this 13, if we can't hold 13,000, like give me a break. Like I'm still in this Apple trade. The only good thing about Apple is it's still managing to hold these lows. But you look at what's happening to the market and you're wondering if we're not going to get that 4% move on the session. By the way, Tesla down at that 880 as we speak. VAX, which is the name that Brendan brought attention to. I just paid for locates. It's not quite at the level on the daily, which I'd like to play a reversal. I think $9 definitely stands out. 8's not a bad level. There's probably some bag holders there, and $7 was previous significance. Like this is your 7 level here. This would be your lower high at 8, but really 9. The 9's got more of like a double top feel to it. If this name could have gotten there, it did not get there, and it's still looking relatively strong. It's got a nice little bull flaggish thing going on. That if it takes out 8, 9 is the level I'm looking for on VAX in the event that it can break. Volume is through the roof, 25 million shares, so liquidity is definitely going to be there. I did make an Amazon trade today. Well, I made 2 Amazon trades today. One worked and one didn't, and the one that didn't work was bigger than the one that did work. So this short would have been like sometimes on a key level, and this matters for like any stock you're trading. When a key level breaks, and you see something like like 2,500 got taken out, it then had a bit of a false breakout. But then what it could not do, and I'll zoom in so you can see a little bit better here. What it could not do when I tried the stupid short here was get past the first area of resistance. Like it absolutely rejected 25, 30, 25 and a quarter. And when something like that happens, sometimes the second move is the one that you want. Because essentially this is the beauty trade that you're going to get. When it breaks 25 the second time, no trouble. And now we're gonzo. Like, I mean, Amazon's feels like it could be headed, and I got to go to the daily chart to come back out here. Can I get you far enough? I can get you far enough. It feels like we're headed all the way back to 2020 when you had 22 and a quarter as your support. 22 and a quarter to 2,300 looks like the final resting spot for Amazon in the short term because it's dragging the market down 15%, making some fresh lows. But it wasn't that first break at 2,500 that had the big monster size on it. It was when it rejected that bounce and then retook the level. Should have just jumped right back in on that same 2,500 short that I'd lost on, but I did not, and I wish I had.
Yeah, I see JD's asking, or he's salivating over futures trades. It's great. It's all, great when it works out, but you got to understand, these are heavily leveraged products, right? The leverage is 50 times. So every point is $50. You got to understand that. The margin on something like this is huge too. So if this is something brand new, I would highly advise against starting with the ES contract, which is the 50 times leverage. I would start with the MES contract. I think the micros, as we call it. I know Brad trades this a lot. I know he wants to get into the futures, or he's trying to get into the futures as well. So this is an easier place to start just because it doesn't cost as much and the fluctuations are a tenth of the value. So MES, same level 2. Well, not the same level 2. It has its own level 2, but it looks very similar, right? It's just the leverage is smaller, so each fluctuation costs less. And if you're learning, obviously you want to go into either something. If you want to do futures, you can do MES or you can do spiders. Every 500 shares is one contract. Every 500 shares should equal one contract. Every 10 cents, 9.8 something cents is a 1 full point on, when you do the math on it. So I wouldn't start directly in the ES because it can get really expensive really quickly, especially if you're learning and you may not have the brokerage account for that. So take a look at the micros, and they have micros in the NASDAQ, they have micros in crude, they have a bunch of micros. So just check the CME Group website. You can get all the data you need there because, people want to, because I probably talk about futures a lot more than Neil and Sean do, but people get interested, but then they step into the wrong instrument and they get run over because of the leverage aspect of it, right? So just be aware that there are other products out there that can help you out and get you actually introduced to the market. With that being said, Brendan.
All right, speaking of other products, guys, it's been an amazing week for the US dollar. Unbelievable rally back to the upside. We had a bit of a pullback today, but does it continue? Frank Caberna is Director of Product Content and Creative at the Small Exchange in Chicago, here to give us his take on whether or not this continues, because I think it was 7 days in a row, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, we got to the upside on the US dollar this week. It's pretty amazing.
Not quite 7 there, Brendan. Thankfully, the 7th day lower, but 6 days straight, 18 of the last 20 days higher in US dollar. And I love the talk about ES and MES over there from the CME. If you are looking to get in futures, I totally agree that smaller futures the way to go. No better place than the small exchange here. Looking at our equity indexes, actually, our STIX product, our popular technology equity index futures, is actually even a quarter the size of that MES. So if you're looking to get in futures, especially in the equity space, make sure you come to smallexchange.com and take a look there. Love the micros in there, but sometimes you need something even smaller. But Brendan, let's get into US dollars, because though we love talking equities and some interesting month-end flows here in equities, it's going to be really interesting the next hour as we go into the close, the last close here in April for those equities looking bearish. Even more interesting in my head is the US dollars here. And to your point, quite a trend higher, 6 days straight. Today looking like we're finally going to get a little bit of bearishness to close out April in USD, but 18 of the last 20 days Brendan, and this is one that I'm short in using the small US dollar margins under 200 bucks or thereabouts to open a trade in this market. Very small first foray into futures, but this has been a really intriguing run, Brendan, and my mathematical mind here that's so in tune to ideas like mean reversion and everything else went back and looked at the last year, couple of years of action in USD just to be like, man, we're obviously trending higher in US dollars. In the long term, are we showing a greater tendency to move higher? And so I looked at the last couple of years of daily info in USD and saw that only about 52% of the time were we moving higher. So pretty close to that theoretical 50-50. Frank, why are you telling us things that we know theoretically? Well, that's because when you see a trend like 6 days in a row or 18 of the last 20, and you can back that up with a back test that tells you historically the market still only moves higher or lower 50-50 there, Brendan, I would expect a big chunk of down days to come. Now, the question becomes, where is that timing on the down days? Is today the first of a few? I would think that we're probably going to see a little bit of a reversal from these highs. But I just want to put that on everyone's board here that this US dollar doesn't tend to trend for very long here, though we've seen a recent trend. I would expect a chunk of down days in the future, but we do have our odds for the immediate future, looking at the options on futures on SFX and the correlating deltas showing you the odds of getting to 162 or 165 in this product. You've got the 10 delta right there about 165, and that's an interesting spot. And I've been selling calls in that 162 to 165 area because that actually correlates to the highs in US dollar from the pandemic and the same highs that we saw going back to Brexit news breaking out and pushing sterling and euros lower back in 2015. They couldn't break these highs in US dollar at 165, corresponding to about $1 and a nickel in euro, the euro cross in there, and sterling lows back from that Brexit. So a really interesting level that, yes, there are some odds that they could get there via the futures on SFX here, but I've been selling those odds and they've been changing here to end the month as we see dollar moving lower. And I do want to kind of rope in here some crude oil action as well, because the month end flows hurting US dollar here, Brendan, but also we saw a big spike up in crude and then right in there going into the old pit close in crude oil, 1:30 p.m. Central Time. Crude getting absolutely spanked. It got almost up to 108 this morning, all the way back down to almost 104 even, now middling around 105. And the reason I want to bring that in, Brendan, is because this has been a really interesting trade. Though US dollar has not given up a lot of ground from those highs, there's a big correlation between US dollar and crude. So if you've been holding short dollars, you've been able to short crude against it, and you've seen that market get up to the highs and back off, especially the levels that we saw this morning, my friend.
It's been an interesting week in the sense of we've seen these really volatile moves, especially with crude oil, into that 2:30 close, 2:30 Eastern close of the pit session, as you said, for the CME. I want to back up just very quickly because you mentioned something that was kind of interesting. We've had a lot of discussion, we've had a lot of questions specifically this week about, yes, the dollar is going parabolic, but why? And you mentioned, the prior two times we've been up here, we had the pandemic, we had Brexit, very obvious reasons as to why. We got a negative GDP reading for the first quarter in the US this week. Obviously, the Fed is to come next week. In your mind, really, what's the driver behind this?
Yeah, this is one of those rare territories, Brendan, where the U.S. data kind of goes out the window. And we can throw up that first chart there of the recent run in U.S. dollars just to visualize what Brendan is speaking to again, what is just a wild outlier of an up move in U.S. dollar. Of course, I'm watching rates and U.S. rates, and you tend to think like, oh, if U.S. rates are moving higher, or if the U.S. is getting, some good economic sentiment relative to their friends in Great Britain, their friends in Japan, and everywhere else, then U.S. dollar should appreciate. It's that relative game. And we've been seeing some of that. One of the pushes higher in U.S. dollar came off of a very dovish call from the Bank of Japan and some data releases there. And you saw the yen move to those lows. But some of that stuff kind of goes out the window for me, Brendan, when we get into such a parabolic move to the upside like we're seeing. I mean, 18 of 20 days, like that's 90% in one direction. And I think you're really seeing this US dollar become a fear market, similar to a VIX or what have you. And that's what we saw in the height of the pandemic news coming out in early 2020. Obviously, the Brexit news in 2015, a little bit of a different case. But this is one, Brendan, that until today, really, we've seen stocks lower, US dollar higher, high correlation between USD and something like a VIX or option premium market in equities. Today, breaking that a little bit. And that to me is I'm not a big indicator guy or technical analysis necessarily, more of looking at some of the probabilities in a little longer term time window. But that's a pretty bearish sentiment on my front when you see fear entering equities and that trend that we've seen recently of translating to a fear bid in US dollars, breaking here today, telling me that maybe some of the velocity is out of that bullish upside in USD. And you could see this market crack back down a little bit lower, especially if you do see stocks bounce back finally at some point here. You might see a lot of the premium that's built in USD over the last 2 weeks be taken out here.
Yeah, it's been a very negative week, a very negative month right across the board for stocks. A lot of money obviously coming out of equities has to go somewhere. Also, we've been touching on over the past couple of days anyways on the show itself, the weakness in the rest of the currencies here, and we should discuss a little bit. And you sent us a really great chart that kind of highlights how everything else is just absolutely plummeting on this move.
Yeah, absolutely. And while it is a great chart, we can throw to the percentages here. It'd be even better if I had established a legend in the chart, but I can't think of everything, but I can point it out for you here. Green is yen. Orange there is euro. Sterling is in blue there, the British pound. And if you're colorblind, I'm very sorry, but this is going to be a tricky one. Yeah, this has been particularly interesting to me here because people who are used to trading currencies will know that yen does get a little bit of that fear bid. Actually, out of all the currency crosses, yen historically, I've done back tests on this for years and years, yen is pretty highly correlated to the VIX. And so I thought this week there was a good case for maybe trying to sell some puts in that yen or picking up some micro yen futures or what have you, given that that's that green line, the weakest of the bunch. I mean, down almost 20% in a given year. You don't see that in the FX space. And two, picking up that yen could, in my mind, be a little bit of a hedge against a long stock portfolio, given its historical correlation to volatility. But just another big down week in yen, picking itself a little bit up off of the lows here to close the week, Brendan. But I really hope that we can get some reversion in those relationships, because while I love trading that big, broad US dollar, I've got some shorts in there, trading those crosses off of each other, trading the spreads in there is just as equally interesting. And I know a lot of people holding some short sterling or short euro, long yen, hoping for that reversion to come back in line.
We will, great information as always. Pretty impressive week. More to come next week, obviously, with the Fed. 2-day meeting set to come next week. This market is right on basically a teetering point right now, Frank. So we'll wrap it up a little bit early so we can get back to what might be a pretty exciting close here. Frank Caberna, Director of Product Content and Creative at the Small Exchange. Thanks again.
Thanks, Brendan.
Send it back to you guys as we continue to head south.
Yeah, we do, but I'll tell you this much. It's always fun to learn something new from Frank every single time. The correlation between volatility and dollar yen, I actually didn't know about myself. So it's always good to learn something. Thank you, Frank. while this was going on, the market did break down even further. The only thing holding up, when I look at Apple, it's crazy to imagine that Apple is still holding this 159.50 area, right? It doesn't even want to test the 59 low. This is my 3-minute chart, by the way. I just didn't want to flip away from RDBX. So like I said, it's the only long I'm in. Alibaba now rolls to like $4 $3.50 in the money, almost $4. Intel is still pressing down towards those lows. But RDBX, everyone's like, why did you short it? I get how strong the stock is. It just broke through $5 on good volume and is still putting in good volume. And there's no other game in town for the bullish trade going into the weekend. However, on the daily, I think we said this either this morning or maybe we said it last week when we were trading this name. When you get to this $5.50 to $6 range with $5.75 sort of right in the precipice in the middle of it, it just stands out as a level for it to possibly reverse. And on the way up, it tried to break, and then it failed that level once, and on the way back down, it just makes sense for a setup for a trade. And I say this every single time we trade one of these, when you get to a level like that and you're not in the long break, the consolidation, the later breakout, maybe the dip down into VWAP at 460, when you're not in these longs and it's trading up here, and then you do have on the daily chart resistance at a price like this, the risk to reward trade is just the short, so long as you take your out if it breaks through the high of the day. And this stop is not at 6. This is my limit order that'll cross up to $6 in the event that we get the breakout. And it's all about the risk to reward and structuring the trade, not what could be, but where it is right now and what the next trade would be for a day trader. And that's all I'm looking at. And as I was just saying that Apple was holding up, well, we just broke that 159.50. So next stop in town. If Apple doesn't hold 159, like we said, it's probably kaput. I'll take one shot adding to this last long in front of 159, and if that can't hold, it's only going to be shorts for the rest of this day, with the exception of DWAC. Like I'm trailing DWAC to make sure we lock in $1 and the holding out to see if we can't get out. But that long doesn't count because it's not going to follow the market, I don't think.
Yeah, all I can say is, oh boy. Remember, we talked about that 60 area. If we clear that, we're going to open up the downside. 50's up next, and it ain't looking pretty right now. There should be a rally. There should be some sort of a relief rally, I would think, after coming down this much, but it's going to be one of those covering rallies, not an actual rally. I'd be surprised if it does a U-turn, complete U-turn here, but it does look like it wants to head to the downside. And it doesn't help that other names are starting to join the party to the sell side. We've got Facebook now breaking that 203 to the downside. We've got AMD that broke that low already. AMD, let me pull a daily for you guys. That's a multi-day move to the upside that now finally broke through this low right here from, I guess yesterday's aftermarket session here. We got through there, so that's breaking down AMD, and then Roku as well. I'm passing up on some of these trades.
Oh my God.
I've got enough shorts on the table, especially with my futures position, so I am passing up on some of these trades. I'm not getting aggressive at all because I've got everything I need. On the equity side, I don't need to press because I've got the future side, right? So, and then Roku as well, breaking through these 94s. So that's opening up the downside. Roku kind of double topping here around this 100 mark. Again, 100, big round number. We've tried it in the pre-market multiple times, going all the way back to the 25th. We stalled around that 102. Well, that level held quite a few times here, and now we're working the bottom. So a lot of names that could help this market. Roku, not so much, but at least with Facebook and AMD, they could help the market because of they have weight, right? It's not like a ton like Apple, but they have some weight, and you're not getting help.
Speaking of Apple, well, Apple, it broke that 159.50, got down to about the quarter mark, and then reclaimed that 50. So I said, let's have it test, a little bit closer in that bottom half of the 59 range and bounce off it before even thinking about adding to it. It just did, so I just added. It didn't get all the way to 160. There's some dark pool wicks up here that keep printing in this 160 range, but I've added back into Apple. This is at the situation. Either it holds 59 or bust. If there's any kind of a minor bounce in the market, probably gets Apple to run like $1 or $2. So it's a risk to reward play at this point. VWAP is actually going to give you 2.5. So it's one of the last things out here holding up. One of the last songs I'll take. Miss V has something for us at the desk.
Hey guys, just around 1 hour left until the end of this trading day and month actually. And I remind you to like this video. I know you're busy guys, but let's do like o'clock because we have 3,000 people watching and only 300 likes. So please support the community, smash the like button, and back to you guys.
All right, here we go to the upside on the futures. This is what I was worried about. Remember, we're short, so I just got to protect the downside, which is, for me, the downside being short is going to be a rally to the upside. So I got to figure out whether I want to cash them out a little bit down here as well or not. You know, we're bouncing off the 55. I'm worried about the 42.60. This is the S&P futures. Now we're at 65. Do I cash some out or do I actually look at the end of the day, I'm not getting out of my short. I'm just trying to figure out where I can add, or if this is a move up that I need to worry about. Remember, a lot of people are short. A lot of intraday players are short, this guy included. So how many people are going to try to hit the exit door at the same time, which makes a move to the upside, right? That's the relief rally, intraday relief rally I'm trying to avoid, because being short, I don't want to give up the whatever move this market has if it were to move up on a relief rally. So I'm just trying to protect my downside, even though that I'm 61 points in the money on the futures here.
So I was going to ask a question, and apologies. I was just sort of adjusting my stops trail on DWAC and BABA, so I was going to ask you, are you trailing?
I'm trailing right now, but at the same time, I'm aware that this market is ripe for a covering rally to the upside, which I would get out some if I start to see it, and then once that is exhausted, I'd be right back on the short side move. It's not a move where I'd flip to a long. Absolutely not in this market. No. Especially with the levels we've cleared, the levels I keep talking about here, this 4160 area going back to, days and days here, all the way through here. We just need to grind through here. We got the grind, and now we're back underneath that 60. That should, once we lose the 50s, that should act as resistance as well. So let's just say we break 50. If we break the 50s, I'll get some out, and then I'll look for a pop into the mid 70s to 80s. And I'll start fading the pop as well. But I do have to protect against the possibility of a downside. If that never happens, it never happens. I'm sitting pretty anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me. But as a trader, it's not the stuff that you got to worry. Like, the winning is not what you have to worry about. When you're in the money, it's the easiest thing to do. It's what could potentially take that money away from you is what you got to worry about.
Exactly.
And you have a huge winner, great. So what? Now what? But are you able to capitalize? When do you get out? When do you not? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Can this market actually have the potential to snap back up? At which point it's taking some money off the table for me. So I'm trying to protect against that. I'm just really watching it closely. Are we ripe for that? I think 4150, failed break of 4150 could open up the door for some sort of move like that. So I am very close to it. I might take some if we start to stall out here around these 60s. If we can't catch another sell wave to the downside. I do have to be aware of that as well, but I'll give it a chance. But at the same time, I'm watching out for signs that, hey, you know what? There might be a problem, at least at these prices. Let's get some out, and we'll come back in a little bit higher.
Speaking of, I'll get to DWAC in a quick little second, but I actually have a trail of myself on Alibaba. That's what I was getting at, because this is up still 8%. There was a positive news coming out from a regulatory standpoint for all of the U.S. listed Chinese names, and it's been a good rollover trade. But if there's a relief rally, I don't want this getting back above that key 39 price. I want to make sure I put the trail in and lock in that profit. On DWAC, it tried again, and eventually at some point, this is going to mark a short sell because of the stop order I had. And eventually at some point you have to lock in your profit. We tested this so many times up here at 53 and failed to get through. And I'm not short here, this is me getting out, but I had to take profit higher, so that was the sell order. And then it codes this as short because the sell order was up here. But either way, it couldn't seem to get through that 53. So that 51 break is going to have to wait. And as long as DWAC holds that 51 level, it's valid for the long. It's been a while that it's been trying to get back above this channel. So as long as it's on the upper end of this channel, it's looking to play longs off the 51 or breaks off of the 55, and there can be short trades in there. But until that happens, I think it's still a little bit bullish. It gets back below 50 even, and you're going right back into looking for those shorts. But it's a strong stock. It's all about the momentum. And RDBX, I only took out half, and guess what? It looks like it's still pretty bullish. And it couldn't even get down into $5 here. So we rang the register on a little bit on that first rollover, and it's still looking strong. That's why you have to have a stop. If this clears through 575.6, it's got air to the upside. When I say air, it's just got a huge runway to $7. So Got to be tight with that stop order. Alibaba already got the trail, like I mentioned. Tesla found a bid, but I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole to the long side. I'm just not going to do it. Like Apple is enough for me. Apple has held the 159 all day long. So that's the only thing I think it's worth going, that I can find of right now that I think it's worth going long. Even though Tesla's back at that key 885 level, I don't think it's worth playing it. If you want to take it up off that level, I think you have to make sure you have a relatively tight stop because it could get pretty perilous down there. I did want to come back to Robinhood, which was crazy all morning. It's managed to not roll back through this 980 level, so it's trying to reclaim 10 even, showing some signs of strength. This is one that has a chance to maybe squeeze late in the day. The fact that it's holding up so well, it's barely red in the session. It could go either way off 985 to 10. I would let it break this 10, maybe get through 1010 before thinking about some kind of a secondary squeeze in Robinhood. But it is worth noting it didn't exactly fail or roll over, which I thought was about to happen. Looks like it's going to find a bit of a bid there. You talked NVIDIA already, but one that we got to yesterday, this is the one that I think is, we don't do like our biggest regret trade. Anymore, but this is the one. If there was a regret today, it would be Qualcomm, because remember, we're in the midst of that multi-day breakout that could not get past the 50 period. It was a great long into that level, and we're looking at that 147 area. Look at what happened when we got, so 147 into that 150 to 152, and then this morning, you're essentially trying to take this 147 all morning long. You get this failed breakout on Qualcomm, right at that same 147 level, and you start rolling through. That is the short, and it goes all the way back into our 140, the support level from the morning after the earnings, and we're almost there right now. This is another name that if it got down to 140, maybe there's a chance that you can catch a little bit of a bid there because it was a significant wipeout bottom, and they reported pretty well. So you might find a few buyers down at that price. All bets are off if Apple takes 159. I feel like at some point I just might take the L on that one, but at least I'm going to be holding my BABA and Intel shorts into this low.
Yeah. So as you guys want to see, I actually started working away from some names that weren't going as much as I would have liked. Intel specifically, I started walking away from that one. I'll take my 8 cents or whatever I had and just call it a day on Intel. We're done with that. I'm keeping a close eye on Billy. TCAT, again, TCAT's doing its own thing. It's not working out, but at the same time, it hasn't hit the stop, so I don't interfere with trades that haven't hit their stops yet. So we're going to let that one go. AVGO, absolutely on fire to the downside. That was a short. That was a first exit. And now we've cracked 560 to the downside, and we're still going. That's $9.60 in the money and still moving to the downside. And Mike Murphy, I saw you. I saw your comment. Don't be greedy about the futures position. It's not about being greedy. This is about absolute trade management. And for me, I'm watching out for very specific things and letting this trade move around, but at the same time, giving it a chance to run. And this is what you have to do. When you have a runner, you got to give it a chance to run. It's management. It's trade management, right? Greed is like hoping for something. This is me just managing this trade, watching out for different scenarios. In the event that we get a snapback, of course, I'm going to walk away from it. But I appreciate the comment there. Don't be greedy. Absolutely, nobody should be greedy. But at the same time, let your traders run, let your winners run, because they say it all the time. Cut your losses short and let your winners run. When you got to let a winner run, this is what it kind of looks like. You got to kind of roll with the fluctuations a little bit. Not get too caught off guard. If it decides to come up a little bit, that's okay, because it did snap from 55 to 65. Perfectly fine. That's a 10-point bounce. Might be a lot, but in this grand scheme of things, not much, right? Now we're getting closer to that 50, and I'm very closely watching this 50 and how we break this, because if we break this and don't get any follow through, that could be an exit point for me. Protect as much as I possibly can on this down move. AVGO almost $10 in the money now. AVGO is going to be something I really got to watch, because AVGO has cleared some decent levels.
Huge levels.
Yeah, they've cleared some decent levels. They're approaching that next one up here is going to be the mid 50s. And if we start to slow down here, that'll be the next one I'll start cashing out on. Because if we actually accelerate towards 550, I'm not touching this. This is going to be going right into the imbalance right at the end of the day. Not going to touch this. But if we actually start to stall out in the mid 50s, I'll walk away from AVGO as well.
And let's remember, it's the end of the month. Like you're saying, like right into the imbalances. So that could be absolutely huge. And Yeah, I mean, again, Apple's testing down to that 159.30, man. It's just, it doesn't look like it wants to hold up. But I'm going to show you Pinduoduo because when you said, hold on to your winners and cut your losing trades, remember this morning I said, I didn't know which direction the Chinese names were going to go. The market comes down and it turns into a sell day, then it's going to be a short. But I like bob to the short side, Pinduoduo for a long. Well, I lost on the Pinduoduo long trade, but at the moment that I got out of it, that's the moment when it was, okay, Bob is just a short for the rest of the day. It's a reload and it's a hold. But I did take the hit on Pinduoduo. So that and it wasn't like it was a direct hedge or anything, although it kind of played out that way. But when you're doing this, you've got to hold on to the win. It's not about being greedy, but let it play out. But then make sure you take out the loss. And the thing about it, in this particular case, it stunk because I got out, immediately Pinduoduo bounces, makes a lower high, which you can hold out for that, but that's kind of fugazi, right? Because it's a lower high and it's a downward trend. But then it holds support at 43 and then tries to take out the top later in the day. But you've got to just look at that and say, no, I stuck to the plan. Yes, holding on to the long leg of it would have ended up working out while I'm holding on to the Baba short, and I could have won on both trades. But that's not the way to play it because it's not what you should do in hindsight that one day. It's if I had this situation 100 times, what should I do 100 times out of 100? And it's cut the loss on Pinduoduo and hold the Alibaba short. Regardless of the result, you cannot grade your trading result, your decisions solely based on the result. Because what's going to happen is blind luck or small sample size is going to end up skewing your results. You want to think about, if I made this decision 100 times out of 100, would it work out? My poker analogy is, you can win shoving with queen 10 offsuit, but into aces, but the reality is that's not a very good move to make. You want to always make the calculated trade, and however the cards work out, that's just the luck aspect of it. And good poker players understand that I could care less whether I won the pot at the end of the day. Did I get my money in good is the only thing you should really be considering. And if you're thinking about something other than that, then it's going to lead to FOMO, it's going to lead to poor decisions, it's going to lead to revenge trading. All these things are going to happen to you regardless. You exacerbate that if you dwell on the result side of decision and analysis. And one of my favorite books, anyone ever asked me for a trading book, and I always say the exact same thing. I say Think in Bets by Annie Duke, and she's a poker player. And the whole notion is you have to think like somebody who is betting for a living. And it comes down to, is it a positive expectancy, and then evaluate it from that. Because if I sit there and say, I want to bet money on Steph Curry hitting a foul shot, right? And then it's like I go bet $100 on Steph Curry hitting a foul, and then he misses. Was that a bad bet if I got 1-to-1 and a 90% shooter? Of course it wasn't a bad bet. He's a 90% shooter. You take that bet every single time if you give me 1-to-1. So you can't think about the result. You've always got to think about whether or not you made a good decision. Anyways, that's my rant. Brendo, what's up?
A few things starting to bounce, guys. Worth noting, Twitter just popped back up to 49.5. This RDBX as well, trying to get back to day highs. Still up 60%. Volume coming back into that. But I mean, this move in the market is pretty impressive, but there are a few things lingering around showing somewhat of a bid. But here we go again. More selling, guys, for the overall market.
More selling helps me. Here we go to the downside. At the end of the day, a lot of, Neil was making the poker analogy. It's a mathematical game. It's a game of math, right? You just got to understand the probabilities. You got to, as best as you possibly can. The only way I have found, writing that stuff down. I've got 2 books full of all the adjustments and stuff that I've done over the years for each one of my, approaches, and I know mathematically what my odds are. And we were talking about this earlier, Neil, about because I lost earlier this week on the futures, and I said, if you give me 5 days, I know what the odds of me winning are, right? And I don't look at it on a per day basis, but I do look at it on a weekly basis. That might be a short time frame, but at the same time, I know what the odds are for a per week win rate. And I know if you give me 5 days, I'll be just fine. So that's just a mathematical thing.
I got a story for this too.
Yeah, go.
So I've probably said this before, but not everyone's probably heard it. But like I've known Arun for, is it 12 years, 15? 16 years, anyways. It gets passed along enough time.
No, you're right, 12 years. 12 years.
12 years. I thought it was
yeah,
right.
It's 12.
But this entire time, because I've seen lots of traders come through, whether it's this floor, the floor Sean and I owned together as well. But Arun was the one trader when you're meeting as a risk manager with your traders and talking through. This is a guy where you'd sit down maybe at best once a month, sometimes more like once a quarter, I would say. And I'd sit there and I just listened to his risk plan, nod my head, and not really say much of anything. A lot of times I'm actually soaking stuff up myself and understand that I know he knows what he's talking about. And there goes Apple. Bye-bye.
There goes the market.
Bye-bye.
South of 41. Now, if we snap back above 4150, this is going to be where I'll start to get some out.
Hold on to your butts. I'm out of the Apple long. Even if it holds now, forget it. I don't want any part of this trade. But hold on to your shorts. Just to quickly finish it up there, he was one of those guys where you knew he had that long-term plan. So that meeting, you only had to have that meeting with that trader with Arun like once a month, once every quarter. Where there's other traders where, hey, they might judge it on a daily basis and you're engaging a little bit more and you're keeping up with them. Whereas I knew with Arun, it's like the way that plan was working, you really only had to check in over the long haul because it didn't matter what happened on a day-to-day basis given the way he was trading. There's other traders, everyone's going to be different, so your journey might be different and your style of trading might be different. That's the key thing. You cannot always get pigeonholed into thinking that there's only one way to trade the markets or one trading style that's going to work out. Sean loves to scalp. I'm kind of in the middle. I love counter trend. Arun is going to hold long for the futures. Brendan loves to trade those small caps as well, but a lot of times he'll more easily go long than I'm willing to go long in some of those. And we all have our different styles. Speaking of small caps, we'll do this. It was working in our DWAC, but like I said, everyone in the chat could probably have guessed where my stop was on our DWAC. If I'm making that trade, I'm getting out at the high of the day. And I made sure I got out of half of it on the way to the downside, but I'm getting out at the high of the day. And if this is top wick and it flushes from here, so be it. You've got to be willing to make that top wick. I'll say it every single time because it's true, but this was the level on the daily that mattered. So I made sure that if it goes through this price, and I think it still needs to get through 6 for a breakout to 7, but the short had to be out at that particular price. And of course the market wants to try to bounce here after I got stopped out of Apple. The only long that I had left takes a stop out. Alibaba looks like it's going to be crude. I mean, unless we make a failed break on Apple, I guess reclaim and hold this level. BABA feels like if we retest 98, I just want to see how far it can go before the imbalances come out. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep, sort of trailing this one back about 50 cents to $1. Brendo?
Frank was mentioning when he was with us, guys, that pretty epic collapse we had in crude oil going into the end of the session there. Went from 108 to 104.5. CVX down 3%. They reported, if you remember, the CEO on CNBC currently. So a bit of volume here for CVX.
Crude's still heading down. I mean, 230 close, but at the same time, Globex hours allows it to keep trading. So it is still moving. A secondary leg here after 245. Yeah, that's the 210. That would be 230. And then at about 245 to 250, we did a little spike and then drop, and then we're continuing to move down south of 104 now. Crude's still extending its downside. One thing I have done, I've taken some more profit here on the futures, just so you guys know, right at 50. It's acting a little funky. I think there could be a bounce, so why not take some more out and see if we can, I'm down. I'm down with a little bit more money. Why not? If in the event we don't need to sit into it, into the entire thing, if it does bounce, but I'm holding a little bit more. We'll see how far this one wants to bounce. But like I said, I'm gonna fade the bounce. Just a matter of how high is it gonna bounce if we get the bounce. If we don't, I'm still holding it. So I've got some more on the table here. But crude, interesting story, still accelerating to the sell side. Remember when we talked about crude before in the past, I essentially worked this box, right? 110. 92. This has been in place since Neil was at Brendan's chair for like 2 weeks now or 3 weeks now. And this is the area that we're working with. Fading anything north of 105 on a short setup, anything 95 and lower down to 92 on a long setup, you avoid everything in the middle. It cracked as high as 107.99, turns around down to 104. So there's your fade right there. Was there a fade? Let's take a quick look at the 60-minute chart. Was there an opportunity to fade? I would argue it'll be this break here, that 106 take, that probably opens up the door for a downside move. But again, I'm not looking at crude. This happened at noon, right? I'm already loaded up on the future, so I don't need to step into crude as well. So I'm kind of okay with missing out on that. I've already got equity positions as well. AVGO making a bounce. AVGO is going to be tricky because it's thin too, right? AVGO is probably going to be the one that I really got to worry about because this is what AVGO looks like. If we get a buy-side flush to the upside, you know, it's up $9 right now, but it could be tricky to get out of. But I'm going to see if I can't. I'm going to try to hold on to this as long as I possibly can. If we get back above 560 and hold, I might just dump it. If we stay underneath and don't do any sort of crazy bounces, then I'll just try to throw this order into the mock if there's a sell side mock on AVGO.
And that's always an advantage you can do, is like if there is a sell side mock, you can hold it till 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it this way because I've tightened my trailing stop on Alibaba. I'm about to do it on Intel as well. But if you look at what's happening, and I wanted to talk AMC because I saw someone bring it up and there's a move happening. But if you look at, that was a failed breakdown on Apple 159, even if it stopped me out. And this is Tesla getting back above that 885 mark as well. So it ends up, they both end up holding these lows and starting to bounce into the upside. And that's why I'm going to tighten the stop on each one of these short side trades that we're holding on to, because I don't want to throw away the profit. Now, AMC, and I'm only bringing AMC up because A, was brought to my attention, you know, B, it's trying to make a bit of a move here. And we've seen this happen in a weak market, small cap, or you can call it memeish names, whatever the word you want to use for it. These types of names can start to find a bit of a rally because that's where retail money wants to go in a weak market and try to find something it's going to push. Now you have 1550, a bit of a double top happening here. There is a red to green story that could possibly occur on AMC as well. It's more the fact that it's got some room to run. Your real resistance on the stock has been that 16 area, at least the last couple of days. So I think there's room to go, but it's a pure scalp trade. If it clears 1550, I think you're just scalping. Oh, I mean, I'd be looking to just scalp it the first 15 to 20 cents. If it gets to 70 to 75, make sure you're covering some in the 80s, 90s, all the way up to 16, more so than anything else. But it still has to clear that 1550. And then RDBX, it looks like it is trying to make a move past that $6. It's not quite there yet. And again, going to the poker analogy for this, like you guys were like, oh, you couldn't have won on the trade. The thing about it, if you take your profit and adhere to your stop, it's a flat to slightly up style of a trade. However, it's more about if you do it every single time, sometimes it doesn't have to be a 90% winner for you to want to get your money in. You got to play sometimes the pot odds is the analogy I want to use for poker. I just get triggered in. Yeah, I just did. I just got triggered into the six long. And I actually got 6 even there, oddly enough. So there must have been like some crazy dark pool prints that allowed me to get a price. I might add to it at 01s, but it's got room to $7. But anyways, it's more of a pot odds thing. Like you just play it if it's a positive expectancy, and if it meets the risk requirements, then you just make that trade. When it comes to the daily chart, once you're through and clear that 6, there is that room. It could be a failed break, and sometimes these longs at the end of the day don't work out for you, but that's a pretty significant level at 6. I also know I'm giving it back to the 75 where it had the previous resistance. So it's a relatively structured trade as well. A lot of times, if it fails to break at 6, gets back to 575, you're at $5 in a big, big way. But the bigger test, I think, is going to be when we get back to 880 on Tesla, when we get back to 159 on Apple, can they hold a second time? And if they do hold a second time, maybe we get a slight relief rally going into the closer run.
Yeah, relief rally is, I don't want to say inevitable. I've seen days.
Inevitable.
I've seen days where this market has zero, even attempted buys, or there's no juice for a buy. But it's just like end of the month, the market's down 3.72% on the NASDAQ. ES is down 3%. I just saw on the news that this is the worst month on the NASDAQ since 2008, apparently. So it's been a rough ride, to say the least. And this market, every time it bounces, it's getting sold back down. So it's not a good look right now. So can we get a relief rally? I mean, it'd be nice so I can reprice some shorts. But at the same time, I mean, all the odds of it happening are against you. But I am going to protect against that possibility by using stops and whatnot. I've also cashed out Billy. We walked away from Billy for a 25-cent winner on Billy. And so, it did what it needed to do for me. It's starting to slow down a little bit with the market doing what it's doing and Billy actually starting to slow down. I don't need to be in it. So we're going to walk away from that one. So we've got TCAT. Come on, TCAT. Like we're not, I know we're not going to bounce, but at least just hit my stop and get me out, man. We're sitting right here underneath that 250 and this thing does not want to go to 250. So this is more principle than anything. I'm going to lose on this trade. It's just a matter of, am I going to get out right now knowing that it hasn't hit my stop? Or am I just going to let it do what it's going to do and get out when I'm supposed to, which is what I do with all my other trades, right? It's just a matter of like, at this point, I'm fighting for probably like 7 cents, right? 7 cents on either side. I either save 7 cents or I give up 7 cents. Is my principle worth 7 cents? I'm going to stand by my principle. I say I'm going to give up the 7 cents and take the hit when it happens.
Two things. Like one, I see where you're coming from, but realistically, you should never speak in certainties. I always have this like adage that like, when it comes to language, if you speak a certain way, you think a certain way, and if you speak in certainties, you think in certainties, and traders should get in the habit of never speaking and thinking in certainties. So when you're like, I'm going to win on this trade, I'm going to lose on this trade, everybody knows, I know you know this, Arun, I'm just kind of saying this for everybody else's benefit, but like it's one of these, that that's not true. Like even if it's the best setup in the world, it's not 100%. So you always want to be in that mode of like, this has to happen or not happen. And by the way, I put this in the chat. I want to make sure that I talk about, and that's right, only the Sith deal in absolutes. I'm a nerd. I love you guys when you do like the Star Wars references for me. But for RDBX, somebody was selling a bunch of shares there at 610. It broke one time, and I was able to get some shares out in front of 615. But somebody was dumping at 610, not once, not twice, but thrice. So I buckled and was waiting for 625. I took some out there at 614. So that caused this dump that we're having here. The question becomes, can it then reestablish, 575 or 570 for a second leg? And I want to make sure I said it out loud because I don't want to interrupt the Arun. I was putting it in the chat, but it was obvious that somebody, I don't know who it was. I know you guys were like, yeah, you're not going to like who it was. I don't know who it was. I'm just telling you, someone was selling a bunch of shares at 610, and that's reason enough to take some profit out. And the question is, can we hold at 575 for a potential reload in front for the shares that you would have taken out at that 610 range? It has a chance, but that was a pretty harsh rejection. So it looks like it's put in a bit of a wick top at 6 even. I'm not going to be adding under those circumstances unless it's a pretty solid consolidation, which I have yet to see. Coming back over to Alibaba, because this market does seem like it's going to try your relief rally, Arun. Yeah. And so this entire time on Baba, I've been tightening up the trailing stop, and it's getting really, really close to just maybe getting me out. Yeah, it's going to do it. It's going to get me out here. Yep, and there it is. So I'm going to be out of Alibaba. Finally, the trade is over. We stack them up a little bit there, but the move that we're making, and because it's 330 as well, but the move that we're putting in on the NASDAQ, we're about to reclaim 13,000. The ES just bounced 10 points. BABA was really decelerating. Like it is having a lot of trouble getting through the 98 level anyway, so we'll take it all out at 98.5. Looks better when I scale it this way. At some point you have to get out of it. I'm still in Intel because this has a chance. And the way I see it with Intel, like as long as we're below the 44, I'm going to give it a chance to maybe at least reclaim the bottom or get towards that bottom. But 44 is that kind of line in the sand where my Intel trail is. But we'll see what happens. Maybe that was the wrong call to get out of Alibaba, but there are some signs that the market is trying to put a little bit of a bounce in, and you can see that extend. We're down 3.5. We're down almost 4%. You saw yesterday when we were at the 4% mark, we gave back about, what was it, like 20% of that, so like 0.7 or 0.8. The same thing could happen here with a bit of a relief rally, and you want to bag your profits going into the weekend.
They got no juice. They're trying, man. There's some buying coming in, and it's not getting anywhere. I don't know how much of a rally this market's going to have to the upside, but I just quickly looked over because there was talk about 13K. I was like, did the NASDAQ actually cross 13K?
No, it didn't.
Yeah, it did. It did. It's at 950.
What?
12,950 now.
No. I meant to cross back to the upside. It didn't.
Oh, to the upside.
It retested 13K when I got trailed out, and then hard. Like it just bounced.
Hard U-turn.
It rejected it hard.
Yeah. And here's the thing with NASDAQ too. I'm going to put up the weekly on the NASDAQ. You get through 13K, you open up the downside into like 12.5 or so. So if you open it up, you think about it right now at 12,950, you've got like 400 points maybe or so to the downside. Not that it gets done today, but I'm saying you've got 400 points before you hit the next support level. So it is spicy to the downside on the NASDAQ. S&P refusing to bounce off these 50s. I got some out at 50, remember? We were trying to kind of avoid a situation where the market popped off. We're starting to pair off some of this. TCAT, again, I'm going to leave that on the table here and Someone asked me, is this 7 cents you could have used elsewhere? Well, 7 cents per share. Is this 7 cents per share I could have used elsewhere? I mean, I've got enough shorts I've got that I want, so I
got to look at this stock.
It's just a matter of, it's just a matter of.
I kind of
I mean,
I actually have a rule about this because, like, to me, if it's also not moving by this point in the day, it's kind of a just take it out situation because it's a distraction. I've been in that situation before. It's just like it's like what's the point? Like, if it breaks back up, like maybe it gives you a little bit more.
All right, you know what?
Because I'm watching it and there's just zero happening. It's like 99% of the tape on TKAT was just a bunch of dark pool prints when there's tons of size liquidity out there. So it doesn't even threaten like it wants to move. It's giving zero indication it will move more than 5 cents in the next half an hour, either direction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, argument's been made, and you guys are right. Fine. I'm not going to get it out right now, though. This is where it's like someone was saying, hey, don't be greedy. This is where I actually am being greedy because I refuse to take the 55 because, you know, I am getting out a little bit higher up. The only reason is because Neil's absolutely right. It's barely trading at this point. It's just kind of locked into a range here. And what are the odds I actually get a rally back to 270, right? So I'm going to say 60 is my exit. If we get it, we get it. If not, we just take it into the end of the day and see if we can get a move through there. But right now, it is there goes the market to the sell side once again, as it's now putting in 46 quarter. This market has no juice. This market has. Baba broke.
Baba broke 98. I just got trailed. Hey, I just got trailed out of Baba, and I'm just as frustrated because you guys put in the chat that CYN is so strong. I tried the long twice on CYN $5, and the second time I just didn't hold on to it. This is a problem with like shorting. It's like this is like CYN. It's like short work, short lose, long work, long lose. It's like this just keep flipping a coin over and over again, and then either way the trend has just been to the upside. It's like if you just go long on this. Look at how clean this has actually been. There's 450. It basically hasn't really threatened that in either direction. You get through 5. Realistically, you can find yourself holding, and that's the difference between being early into a move and being late to it, right? Like it's harder to hold on to it when you are late in a trade like that. So bye CYN up now 41%. Very, very strong chart, by the way. Like the 15-minute doesn't even do it justice. You pull up the daily chart, and it's also got room to $6. And speaking of $6, of course our DWAC, like it goes up above 6 again. And you'd better believe it, there's still sellers up at 610. Like, forget about it. This stock I should just take it off right now and not even wait around for the stop to hit because there was a size seller at 582. Even when it gets above 6, it looks like, and by the way, I'm going to go short. And when it gets above 6, there's sellers at 610 en masse. So, realistically, like you can see what's sort of happening. Like the writing was on the wall. It's like, why wait for it to get below 575? There's a size seller at 575. It looks like they're trying to get taken out here. And they're selling 30,000 shares. And if they're still selling that much at 582, then the stock might have a decent shot of falling. But that was a bit of a capitulation. It did not print down here at 530, by the way. Obviously, that's not going to be true. But this is the short until it gets past that 610 again, because you saw what happened when it got up there. There's just too much selling, and I'm not going to fight it forever. And of course, I don't even want to look at you, Alibaba. I don't want to look at you because the market bounced again, and Baba's still below 98.
Damn it, Baba. Baba's okay. So
I had to get out of that.
All the trades
had to get out.
that FNCH didn't work this morning, and TCAT obviously didn't work. Everything else, INTC's ZYME, Billy, and AVGO obviously worked. Baba, Baba got me. They got me. Straight up, they just got me because I went short here on the 100 break, looked good on the move, and they snapped all the way up to 102, got out, and then they started drifting back down. And I just gave up on Baba after that snapback. So Baba did me dirty this morning. The only hit that I have here that's actually large enough to matter is going to be on Baba. And here it is actually going through 98 now. Really, though? Okay, I see how you want to play. But at the same time, hey, futures making a move now at 53. Okay, there's some covering going on, it looks like. We're getting a little bit more volatile to the upside. I saw someone said it was a 1.9 billion sell. Okay, that'll be interesting if it actually comes out that way. Yeah, someone said,
I choked on that one.
Yeah, someone said, I think these guys have it off their what's called trader.
Damn.
what's it called? TOS. What is it
Oh,
called?
it's
Trader Thinkorswim.
financial juice, though.
Financial Juice, and these guys have it on their Thinkorswim platforms
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
that's right, because you get,
Yeah. So they have that, and they were saying it's 1.9. So, okay, that's going to be an ugly one if that actually comes out. But we've seen it time and time again. It hasn't actually come out the same way it's indicated at times because numbers fluctuate, right? And it doesn't always get updated right away. So we're going to wait to see what this market wants to do. A move to the upside, move to the downside, whatever. We've pared down our positions down to one long, one short. Damn it, TKAT, I'm still waiting on the offer to get out. And then AVGO, $8.90, making a move to the upside. Odds are, given that I've got 15 minutes left, I'm probably going to send this into the mock anyways. See if we can't get out later on, because I feel like it's a little too early for...
You could just send it, just send it to the mock.
I don't want to commit to it now.
But then you're not distracted. That's the only thing.
I mean, I'll give it a chance. If there's a buy-side imbalance, I'll just dump it. If there's a sell-side imbalance on AVGO, I'll just send it into the mock, and we'll get it out then. TCAT obviously doing its own thing. One thing I do want to talk about, we keep talking about mocks. What do we mean by mocks? It's the market on close. So everyone who wants to execute at the official closing price, you send an order with an on-close order tag. Most of you guys are sending orders with either a GTC or a day order tag, meaning at the end of the day it's done. Actually, no, that's the time in force, actually. You guys are probably sending limit orders or market orders. There's a secondary tag you can attach to that called market on close or limit on close, which allows you to then participate with the final closing price, whichever price you see. You know, when you pull up websites and whatnot, when you look for a stock, what's the close of yesterday? That official closing price, because it does have to be executed. And all those orders are kind of piled up together, and it's kind of sent out into a little indicator here for us here on the floor. The data is there. It's just a matter of how your broker kind of shows the data. For us, it's just one of those things where it's put through this indicator that we can see here, the symbol, the direction, the size of these imbalances, and whatnot. So we'll talk about more about this as we get closer to that 350. But for now, we'll go to Brendan.
Pretty impressive volume still right across the board, guys. You were talking about Alibaba. JD.com, however, still sitting here, just teetering really right at that support level. Still up 7, pretty impressive, 7.5% for JD at this point, but not looking good for anything right now.
Not particularly. I mean, like I said, you got CYN, which is running, and I know you had RDBX, which is trying to. I mean, it's got a lot more sellers now, now that it's back below 6. But yeah, I look at JD and I'm just kicking myself because I kept tightening the trailing stop and looking at Apple and maybe getting too focused on looking at every single bounce in the market, trying to convince myself that it was going to bounce. And there's Baba. It's just absolutely falling like a rock. And it is one of those things where this afternoon, all you had to do was sit in your shorts and throw them into the mock, realistically, because it does feel like maybe we are just going to end up on the end of the day, just sort of ending up on those lows. The same way we couldn't close on the highs, might get to that 4% mark. I have Intel still on, which is still working out, but ultimately it just feels like we don't have the juice on Intel to get through the low. And the problem with Intel, and why I'm kicking myself here, whoops, it's not the daily, is if you're tuning in the first time, when you get to a level this significant, this late in the day, it is so incredibly unlikely that a stock like Intel is going to break a 5-year low. If it was going to test this bottom, it would have done so. It would have done so already. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't have the juice to get there. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get much more than where we're already at on Intel. And the reload's only about 50 cents. Like this is not the 45 from earlier in the session. It was Baba that had more room to the downside. And all day long it was weak. I bet you, like if I go to Roku, and I haven't looked at Roku, so I'm saying I bet you, but I actually have no clue. Oh no, Roku didn't take out the low of the day. That's a bit strong. Yeah, so Roku ended up holding this 93, and I had the Roku long off 95. I got some out at 98, and then it stopped me out. But it ended up carrying through to 100. I just assumed that Roku had retaken this low, and we're going to be heading southbound. I'm going to file this one away because if this 93 on Roku, if it holds it today, that's a good jumping point in case we get a relief next week. And if it breaks it, well, guess what? Your room to 90, your room back into 85, and that's worth looking at here, guys. So Roku, file it away, make sure it's these names that you have good levels for, that maybe they're still valid, they haven't been broken. Intel 43, Roku this 93 to 90, Apple if it holds 159, which it's not. You want to make sure that you're holding on to these levels because next week You're going to come back and you're going to trade the stocks that are moving, that are in play, that you like, one of which is still RDBX, which I get the battle that's happening here, and I understand you guys are long the stock. I understand that. It's fine. But you guys all saw the selling at 610, right? You saw the long try to work off of a 6 break, and when it tried to reclaim the level, they were still selling just as much at 10 and not even hiding. They were just sitting on the offer. So it was an out, jumped out early, reversal into the short, and I'll place them out in front of 50s, I'll place them out in front of 530, try to hold for 510s if there's a bigger rug pull. But it's just trade what you know. When I get it, it's a different style from everybody else, and you just do what works for you. I'm not saying that I'm right and everybody else is wrong. That's hubris. That's ridiculous. And any trader who thinks that way should be slapped in the face. It's more about trade the setup that works for you. And I was mentioning this in the chat. If you're focused on a certain set of stocks, and this morning it was all big caps because that's where the moves were going to be, that I thought, it means looking at small caps, I'm probably not catching any of those longs. So on a CYN, I am going to be late. This wasn't on the radar until it was already testing that first 475 for me. And once it makes that break, yeah, I'm late. So I'm going to look for that structured short, be flat overall on that trade because it worked and it didn't. And then when I grab the long up here, I'm not going to hold. This one can be criticized because I didn't hold it through to make sure we're taking 550s, and this is a terrible reload. I should never reload this at 510. That's why I have paper hands and I'm stopping it out, and then I'm like, this was a dumb trade. Get away from this stock. You're about to do something even more stupid because I shouldn't have had this trade. When it consolidates, breaks back out and revalidates that level, that's a good long trade there. So yeah, that's a dumb trade, but when you're late to the party, you have to structure it differently because you're not buying it and holding it. That's what I'm doing with the longer term, like bigger cap stocks. And when I trade the small cap, you're more left with the scalp trade off of the high of the day. And market trying to bounce.
Yeah.
But if we're not above 13,000, is it even any good?
I don't even know at this point. I mean, like, I'm just watching my back, I guess, is the only thing I can really say. Just protecting these shorts as much as I possibly can, trying to avoid a situation where I'm holding on to too much and this market snaps back. It does look like it wants to make a move towards 60. Maybe if we can get above 60, we can open up the upside. But again, shorts only, fading the pop. It's just a matter of how high does it want to go. So going back to what I was saying about the futures, not the futures, the imbalances, about the market on close. This is where all of those orders go, right? So when we get all this information gets disseminated at 350 New York NASDAQ TSX for anyone trading TSX, and this allows you to see what the value is, how many shares people want to buy on the official closing price and sell, whether it's buy side, sell side, and then paired value. We'll talk about it as well. But for now, you've got symbol on one side, you've got the direction. So which side is bigger? This is how many, as of this morning. If we ignore ARCA, let's take out the ARCA source. This morning, this is all data from this morning. If LYG had a sell side mock of 427,000 shares, so they still needed to execute 427,000 shares. On top of the 427,000, they already found 87,000. So 87,000 shares that were needed to be sold. They have found a buyer for that. But the rest of it, the 427, hadn't been found. They hadn't found a buyer for. So it was a sell side imbalance of 427. And they had to execute that on the opening print, right? That's the open. But now you have to do the same thing for the close, and the close works slightly differently because you have a 350 release, then you have a 355 update, which tells you what the floor's interest is. So the floor brokers are going to send their interest, and that gets inserted into the book at 355. So these numbers will fluctuate quite a bit. And then from 355 onward, you go into the end of the day. And that's kind of what you work with as traders in terms of, hey, is this market going to get pressure? Is this stock going to get pressure in one direction or the other? These numbers only ever matter if they're large enough, right? If the stock is thin and the number is large, it's going to matter. On a stock like Apple, if we quickly take over Apple's level 2, it's done 97 million shares on the day. An imbalance of 1 or 2 million, probably not that big of a deal. Imbalance of 10 million, 10% of the day's volume. And if that holds all the way to the end, yeah, it's going to matter. For sure, it's going to matter. So that's definitely one to watch here as well as we get closer and closer to that mock. With about 7 minutes left before the end of the day, or not the end of the day, but 7 minutes left before these imbalances come out. And this mock, based on what you guys are saying, if it's 1.9 billion, this could be a nice downside move, right? But again, we don't know if it's going to be 1.9. It's just a toss-up. figure out or to find out what it's going to be. But once we get that information, if you guys know what the final release, I know Prad likes to follow Financial Juice on Twitter. They have they have a pretty good. I think they have the same data you guys have, which is that singular figure that it gets updated every 5 minutes.
Probably.
So we're just kind of looking at that, waiting for this mark to come out. I've got, oh, damn, I got TKAT out? Yes. Okay. I gave up on TKAT.
Boo.
I gave up on TKAT.
Just hold it all weekend.
I mean, that was the plan, right? I said principles, but then I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely right, Neil. This thing's not even moving. What are the odds it actually, moves up high enough for it to matter for me?
You're going to hate me when I say this, though.
What?
So, like, one of my favorite sayings of all time, it actually may be my favorite saying of all time that a good friend of mine told me in high school: principle is priceless. So, like, look, I agree. Like, what I said, I believe in. Like, if it's not moving, it's a bit of a distraction. However, like, that you have principles about something if you're willing to sacrifice something for them. And that's to be mocked, or whether that's to be sort of it's going against the grain, or in a situation sort of sitting there in a tough position, but you're sticking to your guns because that's your setup, that's your principle, that's what you believe in, and you have a reason for doing it. Principle is priceless, man. Like, I live by those words, to be honest with you, and I've always loved that. That's kind of like, and I wasn't saying it to like make you get out of the position. It was more that you do this afternoon a lot, and you begin to realize it is very, very easy to overtrade, especially in power hour, and just be doing too much, trying to trade every single move. And during lunchtime, that's going to be a struggle. I don't know how Prad does it in the lunchtime show, because it would be so tempting to be in every single trade that gets talked about or pulled up, because you'll see things moving. But it's just a different beast at that time of day, and there isn't always a trade at that time of day. So you want to make sure that you are sticking to your guns. You are trading your own book. You're doing what makes sense to you. Just coming back into the market, Apple is now running away from that 159 level. So we're not holding up at all in this market. Remember, 159, like, this is it. That's a 200 period, 200 simple moving average on Apple. And this is what it looks like on the 15-minute room to the downside. This market doesn't stand a chance. I got a trail on Intel at this point, so if the imbalances somehow come to the buy side are not that big, I'll probably just get trailed out on Intel. That stock pretty much always has at least a million buy or sell imbalance. So I'm pretty sure it's going to make a move one way or the other. And if it's in my favor, great. It'll fall even further, and that's fine. Or if it comes out of buy, I should just get instantly trailed out of it at 350. So I'm set on that stock. RDBX looks like it's catching a bid again, this time at 550. And just like last time on the 550 short, it couldn't get past the quarters. On the 585 short, it can't seem to get past 550, but just follow the same plan of action. Make sure you're taking profit, and then it can't actually be a loser. And the Stop Console Wars, I'll read this one. Wise man once said, your own principles will school you every day if you stick to them. Oh, you just made that up? Dang it. I just Ron Burgundy myself. I'm like, oh, he's about to drop a quote. I like that one. If you made that one up right now, I like it. Stop Console Wars. And that's not to say that you should only listen to yourself and I'm always right or anything like that, but there's certain things that you either believe or know to be true, whether it's your research and back testing of a strategy that works for you when you do it, or a rule that you have in life that matters a lot to you, and maybe other people don't care about it, but that's fine. It matters to you, and you've got to make those decisions, and that's what it's all about. Man, this market is getting smoked.
Absolutely to the downside. It is.
Oh, for the love
damn, are we going to look at 40 next? Damn, this is going to be aggressive to the downside as we're looking at 40. Tesla broke. This market's, hey, that 1.9 billion, I hope that's not actually how large it is, because this could be ugly, to say the least. So, not looking pretty right now.
Play the Bubba Sparks song, man. It's getting ugly. They're like, who the heck? Every time I say Bubba Sparks,
keep in mind, though, 36.75 is the low from Monday. Is it Monday? The 26th. Yeah, I guess that would be Monday. That would be the low from Monday. And if we are going to continue through there, this is stops? I don't know. 35, I would argue, is going to be the stop placement on this one if we are actually to break down further. Though this ain't looking too pretty right now. And this market is not liking life.
This is about to get real.
This is about to get real quick.
It's already gotten very, very real, very, very fast. Like, this is complete insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like, this is the thing. Like, it doesn't matter what you pull up here. Like, you're going to find, going into these imbalances, Tesla breaking the low. I mean, I could probably call up Microsoft for you breaking that low. And I want to make sure I get the imbalances for you live. So I'm going to make sure I actually have my screen up. And this is a normal thing. Like, usually Sean would be doing this. And I'll make sure that this screen is going to have all of the imbalances out. And if there's individual names that you're like, oh, goodness, like, is there a big sell imbalance or buy imbalance on that one? We can check them out. I got a trail. I'm not really going to be in anything that's too crazy, I don't think, at this particular moment. So, we'll be able to check these things out. Yeah, Softy down 3.5% and wiping out the bottoms here. It's just getting ugly across the board. Maybe there'll be a slight bounce or we can find a little bit of a relief rally, but I'm not seeing anything. I scan over to something like an NVIDIA. It's trying to hold a 186 down 5.5%. Like, give me a break. Like, everything looks pretty weak. I'm looking at, I see you guys throwing out names. I see NEO. That's breaking the low of the day. Every chart is pretty much exactly the same, and it is just abject disaster across the board. I shouldn't say disaster, but like, we're breaking significant levels across the board here, and it doesn't get much uglier than this. So, hold on to your you-know-what, because in about 30 seconds, we are going to get those imbalances. I'll get them to you live. I'm going to be on the right screen here, so in 30 seconds or so, we'll see what happens. I'm expecting you will. It's the end of the month as well, right? So you will see very likely, millions on a lot of these imbalances. Just keep it with a grain of salt. We are expecting to see rather large numbers in either direction. So if it does not come to the sell side, it would be a huge shock if we didn't get sell side imbalances. Like, it's got to be to the sell side here, as we're going absolute flush city. Now down 4.25 on the NASDAQ, 4.25 and 3.5 on the ES. Here they come, 350. Uber, that's a buy on Uber? No, that's not. Apple, $3.5 million to sell on Apple. Microsoft, $1.5 million to sell on Microsoft. Activision, 1.5. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. WC, all the banks are about $1 million to sell to the downside here. I'm watching Pfizer. Apple just got crushed. Apple, are you kidding me?
This is a rough ride. This
just got
downside. Damn.
Oh,
and there goes AVGO too. AVGO is a huge move. Okay, I like it. Futures, remember, we're still in a piece of this short, so we're holding on to dear life for these shorts as this market cracks to the downside. Now working 25s, and these guys are getting excited. Damn, they must be short across the board here as this market continues its move. 41.25 and working to the sell side. Bye-bye market. 41. How much was it, Greg? Greg, how much was it?
7.4. Did you say 7, Greg? 7.3 billion to sell.
Ooh.
7.3. By the way, that Apple sell imbalance took it to 157. Apple went to 157.5 off that 159 break. They'd held this all day long in the face of the market dying and then just got absolutely smoked. This is why we're talking about, like, imbalances this, key levels that, hold on to your shorts. Like, this is just, it's almost like an abject disaster. Like, I'm not saying disaster, but that fell off an absolute cliff. Yeah, we said, like, it was over 7 million to sell. We had like 7.4. I see 7.3, 7.5. That is a distinction without a difference, my friends. It doesn't make a difference. That is a gigantic sell imbalance and the biggest of the big. And the last shoe to drop, which was Apple, it just dropped.
It dropped straight up.
That's it. It dropped. Apple, it dropped.
VICI was on the board last week as well. So we'll see if this one actually has a chance to actually get going. I don't know. VICI was it yesterday? No, it was a couple days ago actually, where it was there and we were like, okay, well, is this going to actually hold ground or is it actually going to stay? It has stayed and it flipped right at the end. So keep an eye on VICI. We've got Uber on the buy side, 2.1 million buy. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's all about Apple. Apple is going to be the big dog. Apple controls this market. We know Apple has had a rough ride of it, to say the least. To the downside.
Look at Uber. That's weird.
Yeah, Uber's, I mean, the market's down. Uber's got a bit, a little confusing there. But
if Uber stays a buy, and this is just like sort of like on the bounce rate, at 355 when the floor updates, if Uber is still 2 million to buy and hanging out on the low, like there might be a little bit of something there for a trade on Uber. I'm not saying make that trade. It's just that's what I might be looking for because it's still selling off with the rest of the market, and 2 million is not an insignificant imbalance for Uber's done. What have we done here? 18 million shares on the day in volume, and it's got a 2 million buy imbalance. If that still hangs around by the close and it's on the low of the day, well, there might be a quick little scalp trade off of Uber, and that's what I'll be watching, going into the last 5 minutes of the day. So like we said, if you're not entertained by this, are you not entertained? Hopefully that's what you can do. Like, if you can't short, then the best you can do is sit on your hands, because as long as you ain't long, you can't lose money in a market like this. But the short has been the opportunity, kicking butts. When you don't hold on to something, you get burned. That's what happened. Like 97s on BABA. Got to live with that. This is wild, wild price action here. And a couple of names we haven't even looked at, because let's check them out. Facebook 200. Like, you throw a symbol out and it's gong show. Facebook 200. Like, think of how strong this was off of the open. Right? Like, we were breaking out on Facebook 05 to 12. That was probably better than the Tesla long was going along Facebook. And it's through the low, through 200, and now down 2.5%. This is also a failure on Facebook through the 50-period moving average. Like, if this reverses that bounce that we just saw after the earnings and couldn't get through the 50 and you retest the lows, think of how bearish that is, not just for Facebook, but for tech in general. So that's crazy, crazy, crazy price action that we're seeing here.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too. Keep in mind, guys, at 355, we get an update from the floor regarding what their interest is. It's 7.1 or 2 billion as of right now. If the floor decides, hey, we want to sell some too,
it gets even crazy.
It gets even worse. So let's see. We've got an update here in about, looks like about, 10 seconds. These guys are getting a little wild behind us here.
We're fired up because we're still falling off a cliff. Like, and if you pull up the future, like, there's no bid, man. If it doesn't pair off and it stays a sell side, this is what it goes into. It's just going to be it'll be worse. I'm looking at it right here. I see Uber did stay. Most of these sell imbalances did get a little bit smaller. So overall, it might have paired a little bit, but it's not like we're bouncing a heck of a lot in these futures. Like, you're getting a small bounce here off the bottom. The NASDAQ 4.5%. I was watching Facebook. Facebook just held the 200. Apple's holding the 157.50. Looks like the Apple imbalance, I can't even see it anymore. So Apple must have paired off completely.
Yeah.
It looks like Apple paired off completely, because I don't even see it on the board anymore.
Yeah, odds are Apple probably did pair off.
And you're seeing it, some strength is coming back into Apple, at least for the end of the day. It doesn't matter. It's not really holding that 159. Forget about that. Like, it's holding the 157 at this point. Like, it's like damage control at the bottoms here for the market. And Uber is making a bit of a bounce, because it's still a 2 million imbalance right there on Uber. 2.3 actually on Uber to the upside. And there are a couple of buy imbalances worth looking at. Delta is also a buy imbalance, 1.3. And Vale, for whatever reason,
is that how you actually say Vale? I thought it was Vale. I've always called it Vale.
I thought it's Vale.
It could be Vale, because it is Brazil, right?
It's Brazilian stock. It's Vale.
So it could go either way.
It's Vale.
Okay, so I thought it was Vale, but I mean, for the most part, I guess it is Vale. But here we are, kind of moving to the downside. Market's all over the place, man. Like, are we up? Are we down? Are we not? We bounced a little bit. Now we're taking another leg to the downside. As you guys can see, I dumped my AVGO position. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with these futures, because it is now. Remember, we were short at up. Oh, it doesn't show on the screen anymore. 42.25. We are 100 points in the money on a portion of this position. 100 points.
It's insane.
100 points puts you at $50 a point, puts you at $5,000 a contract, guys. Just so put things in perspective, and that's just me getting out along the way as well. I got some 85s, got some 50s, and now we're sitting at 22. You hit the pew?
I'll hit it again.
There we go.
You didn't see it.
Oh, boo.
Hey, but why it didn't work? Oh, by the way, yeah, that's staying on this one for sure. That's not going anywhere. We're going to stay on the bear, obviously, with this market. We're still on the low and taking lows and testing lows on Apple. It doesn't matter. Whatever you look at. That Uber imbalance, Uber is still a 2 million buy imbalance, and it won't even budge off the low of the day. It won't even move.
Nuts.
Like, it's absolutely dying. There might, like, at this point, I don't even know if I want to take it, but there might be something on that Uber trade, but I don't even know if I want to touch that.
Facebook just broke the 200, by the way.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
As the market dies off and falls off a cliff here, Facebook, we're losing all of the names, right? We lost some names earlier, but now we're just really losing all the names here. Let's just put it this way. Sean will definitely be coming back to a very interesting May, because he's been out. He's missed a lot of this crazy action. He's going to be excited to come back, and I'm pretty sure May is going to start off with a bang for Sean, because it's It ain't looking pretty, man. It ain't looking pretty right now. 4,100 goes. We talked about this, Neil. 44,000 is up next if 4,100 goes.
Yeah, like that's sort of the thing. Like you mentioned it right there. Like look where we are on the ES on the 60. Like it's floodgates. It's floodgates, and that's what happened when Apple broke. It was a last chance. It was a last-ditch effort for these markets. About 90 seconds until the close, and we are going to. I mean, barring an absolute miracle, we're closing on the low of the day. And it's not just on the low of the day. It is beneath major support. So Monday's going to be crazy. You better believe it. You buckle up. You can hear the excitement in the back because you don't see the three off. I was waiting for the rest of this to load up so you guys can see. This is that major support that we are essentially bursting through right here on the ES. And yeah, you don't like to see it, but truth of the matter is momentum is momentum, and you take advantage of momentum as a trader, regardless of the direction. Like you're here to trade those moves, and that's what it's all about. And this one is to the south side and has been pretty much all afternoon. I'm like running out of breath. Like, whew.
It's not exciting, to say the least.
It's crazy.
To say the least, this market is absolutely falling off. I'm just cashing out some more futures along the way here around these 20s. We're getting to near the end. Remember, we got to be flat by the end of the day, right? That's just how we operate here at Day Trade the World. So we do have to walk away. Man? Tony's coming soon, I guess.
I know. We got 30 seconds to the bell. Miss V just sprinted. Do not trip and fall. We don't want a lawsuit on our hands. She just sprinted to get over to the bell. Tony just sprinted to get in position because I know he's watching this market as well. He's probably like, I'm trading. Don't want to ring the bell. 15 seconds until the close. Hopefully everyone has had a fun close. Believe me, it's been an absolutely wild one. Dropping the countdown on you. 8, 7, 6, 5. Dance it away because it's wild, baby. 3, 2, and 1. Ring it.
There's your day, guys. Nuts of a day, to say the least. Nuts of a day.
Damn.
Yeah, that's the kind of market you got right at the end of the day. Watch out. I mean, I saw it on the screen earlier. April was the worst month, and now I think it's fairly confirmed that April is the worst month since 2008. So market's bouncing back up, but we're having quite the ride here on the futures. We're having quite the ride across the board. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla held up well. Remember, Tesla was the lone bright spot. Turned negative, down 0.82 on the day. So here we are.
Everything turned.
Everything's going for a ride to the downside, guys.
If it held up, then it's some kind of a small cap stock that doesn't care about the market. Everything else got crushed. Although we will double check. Brendan, can you confirm how this market ended the day?
I don't think we need to, but yeah, just to on that note from Arun, 15%. We got to about 14.98% total for the NASDAQ on the month. So yeah, you got to go back to 2008, guys, to have a month this bad. Here we go. Pretty ugly numbers across the board. Remember, we were positive. I mean, it was, anyways, it doesn't matter. 4.5%, 3.8 for the S&P, the Dow 2.5. Wow. What close, guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, there's nothing you guys saw. Everybody watched it. Like, you understand, like, the significance of, like, some of the levels that we're seeing. And this is the market we're in 2020, 2022. It's just, you're going to get increased volatility, right? Like, that's just going to be it. And it's going to last for the rest of the year. A raising rate environment gives you these types of opportunities, and we're going to definitely enjoy them. It's been wild. I want to give we always go through the entire team, but I want to give a very, very big and special shout out to Fahad today, because I'll tell you, you guys didn't know Lucas wasn't here. Randy filling in for Lucas and Fahad, killing it on the ones and twos. It was like we didn't miss a beat absolutely at all. Maggie's not out here, so we can't say what's up to her. But I will say congratulations to Maggie. She just graded, and we congratulate her for that. For
she just what?
She was at her graduation. That's what.
Oh, damn. Okay.
But for the entire team, Mr. Cantina, you're going to enjoy coming back to this moving market. You're going to love it, brother. Trader Prad, he's busy right now with celebrating and doing his thing. I don't know if you can get him on quickly there, but he's at his screen now. Great midday show as well.
He is excited.
For Miss V, killing it as always. The green didn't help today, but there was probably no chance of that doing anything. And, Brennan is always kicking butt. Great interview with Frank today.
It was worth noting, guys, the Dow actually crossed 1,000 points at one point.
Damn.
So it was, it's been a long time since that happened as well.
Yeah, actually, I can't even remember the last time that happened. I mean, it has been a while. But Arun, honestly, it's always fun to have you on here. By the way, Arun is always like, he's on the chat. Like I can chat with him like inside. So if you were looking for levels or whatnot, and you're like in the middle of the day, do we have levels on the ES? I'll ask Arun, shoot him a message, and we'll put it in the chat for you guys. But thank you so much for filling in. We all learn a ton when you're here. It's been a while. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy it. Rest up, because next week is going to be wild. This is Trader TV Live. We'll see you next week.